Like, because my thing is, we've been doing this for at least 5,000 years. We've been interacting with these
Incredible.
beings.
Mhm.
I think longer. I mean, there's some evidence of longer, but we can confidently say for like 5,000 years. And no one's really talking about that we've been working with the good folk for 5,000 years. I thought, well, that I should probably just take what I've found and, you know, boil it down to the basic points and write that, and maybe someone would be interested. And once I started talking about that, some things confirmed that, yes, we would like you to do that.
Welcome to Big Crystal Energy, Season 3, the Veil Season. I'm Ashley, and I live at the threshold. Between medicine and magic, between the visible world and what waits just beyond it, between the person I present and the witch I am. I've learned something. The in-between isn't a problem to solve. It's a place of power. This season, we're exploring the veil, where Victorian women spoke for the dead, where fairies guard the crossroads, where glamour becomes armor, where you stop apologizing for being both things at once. The crystals have always known the way through. Let me show you. About 50 minutes into this conversation, something happened on my guest's video feed that I couldn't explain in the moment. A shadow that was already there behind him, something moved into the shadow. Not his cat, not his kids, nothing in the room. After we recorded, I had a few people from the paranormal space take a look at the footage, and their read is that there's probably a more mundane explanation. Could be, but sitting there watching it happen live, it felt genuinely creepy. You can see that on my face. You can see it on the guest face as well. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise because it really was quite disturbing in the moment. So make sure you watch the video on YouTube and let me know what you think. Anyway, that's kind of a perfect way into today's episode. My guest is Brandon Becker. You might know him as Inside the Hollow Hills on Threads. He does not work with the fairies you're picturing. No wings, no Tinkerbell. Brandon traces his practice back through megaliths and burial mounds through at least 5,000 years of continuous human contact with what he calls the good people or the other crowd, beings he describes as chthonic, primal, tied to the underworld, not to garden fences. We talk about where that Tinkerbell image actually came from. It's much newer than you think, and about the parts of this practice most people either romanticize or seriously underestimate, including the thing Brandon calls, without much exaggeration, a high-risk, high-reward relationship, making an actual pact with these beings, what that requires, what it costs if you get it wrong. He's also got a book coming from Moon Books, and he'll tease that at the end. So settle in, keep an eye on your shadows. I'm Ashley, and this is Big Crystal Energy. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. I'm Ashley, and I am so excited because today I have a guest that is here to talk about one of my favorite topics ever, which is fairies. And so I have Brandon Becker, also known from like on Threads, Inside the Hollow Hills. And I am really excited to chat with him about this topic, his perspective, the things that he does and works with. Brandon, welcome to Big Crystal Energy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is so fun. I want to know, I have a question that I like to ask my listener or ask my guests when they come on. So Big Crystal Energy, to me, it's not just about the crystals. It's about the things in life that we're excited for, the things in life that give us big energy. Is there anything that's giving you like some excitement, some big crystal energy this week?
Ooh, this week.
Or recently? It doesn't have to be this week because honestly, I haven't
uh,
been feeling a lot of big crystal energy this week myself.
yeah, it's tough. It can be tough in 2026 in America. It can be rough.
Yes, it can.
So no, I mean, I have a really busy schedule with like day job, online stuff and writing and all that. So like I don't have a ton of time and the family things and all that.
Oh
So
yeah.
But the last couple of weekends, including this weekend, I've had time to just like read and work on
Yeah.
not writing that I have to do, but writing I want to do, and go just like get lost in the woods for a while.
Oh,
And
perfect.
so it's cool. Like it's rejuvenating, and that's a good thing.
I love that.
A good Lunasa. So
Beautiful. Where in the world are you living?
yeah, I live in the Pocono Mountains, which are like the northern tip of the Appalachians, which
Yes.
that could get me in trouble. There might be some people from the South who will be like, that's not Appalachia. I mean, ask a geographer and it is, but ask folks from Southern Appalachia and they'd be like, no, it's not. But yeah, so I'm in the mountains of Pennsylvania, which is beautiful and very like the nature here is great. Sometimes the people aren't as aligned with, my values and way of viewing the world, but
Feel
it
that
is what it
deeply.
is.
I feel
Yeah.
that so deeply. Where I am in California, in the middle of suburbia, it's very challenging to find people that have similar interests.
Yeah.
Very hard.
At least aren't you near LA or no? Am I
No,
wrong
I'm
about
up
that?
north. I'm like an
You're
hour and a
okay.
half, maybe like an hour and 20 minutes from San Francisco.
Oh, you know what? You did say that the one because yes, I recall one of your
Yeah.
episodes. You mentioned that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I
I go
mean,
to LA a lot too, so
well, so you're not far from the John Muir Forest.
no.
Have you ever gone there?
No, I have not, which is actually kind of wild because
Yeah.
for a long time, I don't know, we just kind of like avoided the Bay Area because of the traffic and
Fair.
all the stuff.
Yeah.
But I've
And
actually
everything costs everything.
so everything is so expensive. But actually, in the last few years, we've been getting back to going over there a lot more regularly. So definitely that is something that I want to do because I feel like, yeah, just an extremely beautiful, magical place to visit.
Yeah. My day job, which is not related to anything in this realm,
Yeah.
but my previous day job to my current day job, I had to travel to train therapists and clinical supervisors to different parts of the country, and I would be in the Bay Area 2 to 4 times a year. So and in LA 2 to 4 times a year. So that was fun. I don't do that anymore, so I haven't been back for a little over a year.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful place. And I think now that my kids are a little bit older, like hiking and all that stuff is more fun, especially because my little one, he just turned 4. So he has like a lot more stamina for doing bigger outdoor adventures. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm excited because we don't live that far from Yosemite and all of those amazing places too.
Mhm.
So I'm very curious, how did you find your way to this work? Because I mean, it's kind of a very I would say it's kind of a niche path in some
Yeah.
senses. So
Right. So that's fair. That's really fair. I think that's changing. It's like there's more of a growing interest in our good neighbors, but yes, because you mean work with the Fae
yes.
folk specifically. Yeah. So well, really, that started with megaliths.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. If I hope this doesn't go too long of an explanation, but it's
No,
not a short
please.
answer.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Please explain because, because there's probably many listeners that are not familiar with this at all. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the context is very important.
Okay. So megaliths, big, including standing stones, things like Stonehenge, but also Bruna Boino, which is a mound.
Mhm.
They're all over the world. They're most densely focused in Western Europe and especially in Ireland and the British Isles. But anyway, I was just sort of interested that I came at them from the perspective originally of archaeoastronomy. I was just interested in the idea that, wow, there's these celestial alignments that people erected massive stones for thousands of years ago. That's
Mhm.
crazy, and I just wanted to learn more about that. But in the course of learning about that, I started to notice that in Ireland, a lot of these megalithic sites, and particularly ones with celestial alignments, are, what we would call the structure, not the people.
Mhm.
So a fairy mound.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting. And there's all these like legends and folklore associated with those megalithic sites that are consistent. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I'd been involved in, you know, the esoteric and in, I guess I'll say magic by a looser term, for a really long time.
Okay.
And so this was maybe in my like early 20s where I started to get interested in the megaliths and learning more about these burial mounds and their connection to the good people. And the more I read and learned about it, there were, synchronicities, like little things where, you're reading about this and then you happen to hear a snippet of a
Mhm.
conversation about this. And then you happen to find out about this book that's connected. And all these little things were connecting for me. And I was getting interested in Celtic Reconstructionism. But that's not even really the right term. I was interested in Celtic Reconstructionism. I was reading about like Druidry and
Mhm.
stuff. And I thought, this is cool, but we don't know a whole lot for sure about what the
Mhm.
Druids believed or practiced. Let me dig into that. Let me dig into the archaeology and what historical documents we have. And in doing so, I learned, wait a minute, the Druids didn't even make these structures, which I think a lot of people think. They
Right.
think of Stonehenge and they're like, oh yeah, the Druids made that. The Druids almost definitely used Stonehenge,
Right.
but they didn't make it. It was already ancient by the time the Druids were around. So I was like, okay, hold on. Then who built these things? Where that wasn't the Druids who built these things. And the the Irish mythological cycle specifically has some stories about some specific structures, and then you can see tie-ins with similar folklore and similar mythology with similar megalithic structures in other parts of Europe and other parts of the world that are also connected with the good folk. And so it started to become really obvious to me. I don't know how many people, but obvious to me that something happened a long time ago. It's clearly not that I doubted that the good people were like real, but it was just not something I thought a whole lot about. It wasn't really a part of my life for a long time, but I started to realize, so something happened. These people are real. We sent them away, and that had consequences for our whole species, like the
Mhm.
whole human species. And there are some people who have always tried to maintain a relationship. So that is I could say more, but I'm almost
Yeah.
rambling at this point. But that's kind of like the through line is I started to collect these pieces about megaliths, druids, the good people, and practices that are still happening today in some parts of the world. And I was like, okay, something's actually happening here. I should probably mindfully engage with it instead of just knowing about it in the background.
So then how did you kind of develop a practice, or would you call it a practice, or did you just start writing, or like what do you do from there?
Yeah. All right. So wait, that's what I did was I said, if I'm going to mindfully engage with it, I have to now gather books about fairies, books about the connections between folklore, mythology, and archaeology, and then see what other people. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Other people
Yes.
surely have looked into this before, which actually, so there are people who have, like, obviously notable people like Morgan Daimler,
Mhm.
um, Cat Heath, other names that are escaping
Yeah.
me at the moment, Vanderhoven. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so like there's there's people who have done some of this work, and I started to gather their books and learn about their practices. But it was what a lot of people do when you're learning about these practices. You go, well, why are they doing that ritual? Okay, there's a citation, flip to the back of the book. Oh, they're referencing this other book. Let me go and get that.
Yeah.
And soon my whole bookshelf was books about this.
Uh-huh.
And my notebook for notes and references and stuff was getting so thick that I was essentially compiling my own kind of like guidebook on how to do this practice, cobbling it together from these lost pieces of folklore and archaeology and stuff like that. So
Interesting. And when you started doing this research, were you just doing this like for yourself, for your own knowledge? Were you doing this because you had this dream of like writing a book, or did your family know that you were doing all of this? I'm
hmm,
just curious because I
yeah.
like to ask these kinds of questions because I recognized that when I was more open about things following in my own path, like, just certain things that came up amongst friends and family and whatnot. And I'm just curious, like, how that process has been for you.
So there's a few questions in there.
Yeah.
And so the first one is like, I was doing it for me initially. I
Yeah.
needed to know, and I needed to know that the practices I was implementing were correct, for lack of a better term. Like,
Yes.
I didn't want to be doing stuff that one person came up with and thought was cool. Like, are you familiar with the individual Iolo Morganwg? He
No.
he's a historical dude who he made up a bunch of. Can I curse? Should I not
Sure.
curse?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, he made up a bunch of shit, and he said,
Oh.
"Oh, this is druidry, right? This is what druids practice." But he made a lot of it up, and his influence still impacts, druidry and Celtic reconstruction today, where people have to kind of take that out, or like Blavatsky,
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
H.P. Blavatsky. Theosophy still influences a lot of, magical traditions
Or
today and pagan traditions today, and you have to kind of go, wait, where did this come from?
right.
I mean, they're just blending in all this stuff that shouldn't be in
Mhm.
here. And so I wanted to make sure I was correct. So it was for me. But after a certain point, I thought, well, because I am very reconstructionist in my
Uh-huh.
mentality. Like, I want to have sources for stuff. I want to know why we're doing these things, who did it, who didn't do it. Not that someone couldn't have their own gnosis. I mean, I've
Right.
had my own experiences, but
Mhm.
I don't want to just trust rando Joe over here. So I was compiling all of this, and I thought, first I just thought, like, I wonder if anyone else would want to know this. I mean, no one else has compiled all of these connections between all of these sources about the Neolithic aspect, the Neolithic ritual. Like, because my thing is, we've been doing this for at least 5,000 years. We've been interacting with these
Wonderful.
beings.
Mhm.
I think longer. I mean, there's some evidence of longer, but we can confidently say for like 5,000 years. And no one's really talking about that we've been working with the good folk for 5,000 years. I thought, well, that I should probably just take what I've found and, you know, boil it down to the basic points and write that. And maybe someone would be interested. And once I started talking about that, some things confirmed that, yes, we would like you to do that.
Mm.
And I can't really say a whole lot more about that.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, yes, I will do that. So I did write the book then. I don't know if I said that before, but I wrote a book about it. It's
Oh,
coming out not this November, but the
right. I did
following
note.
November.
I noted that. I was gonna have you tease that at some point during the
Uh,
episode.
There you go. I'm teasing it.
Okay.
so
I love
so
that.
yeah, not this November, but the
November of
following November.
2027, your book will be out.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Moon Books is publishing it,
Wonderful.
and I don't have a pre-order link yet. I'm supposed to have one soon, and I'll put that out on all my social media and my website once that's available. But that's about that kind of the
Uh-huh.
Neolithic origin. Anyway, so I was doing all of that, and then the last thing you asked was about how do people know? So yeah, I mean, I'm married. You can't. I would hope you can't be married to someone and they don't
No.
notice that you're like doing all this weird stuff. So, like there's a stone table that I built from natural pieces of stone in an enclosure on our property. So, my wife was like, "What's that about?" Yeah. I was like, "Well, I can't fully explain it, but the research," and I kind of started to explain the research and
Mhm.
why I was doing it and what I'm doing there, and leaving offerings and stuff. And she just said, like, "Okay, cool." She just wanted to know. She wasn't judging me or anything.
Love
She's
that.
someone who I don't think she accepts certainly my practices, and I don't think doubts them at all, and has participated,
Mhm.
made her own offerings and requests and things that aren't for me to talk about. But once she saw the outcomes of some of the practices that I was engaging in, she was like, I think I might need to get in on this.
Evil. Yes.
So, but my kids, I have two kids, and they would ask questions about stuff I was reading or writing or doing in the yard. And I would say things like, "Hey, when you're playing outside, don't play over in that enclosure. It's not really like a
Mhm.
play area." And, "Well, why? What do you mean?" "Okay, well," and I would explain stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I remember one time my oldest, she said to me, she was like, "I was telling my one friend about the butter and grain that you leave for the good people. And she said, it kind of sounds like your dad's in a cult, but the cult's just him. And I was like, okay, dude. I was like, well, thanks for that. So, yeah. So I think it was funny. Yeah. So my family knows, and at this point, most of my family know that like I wrote a book and it's coming out.
Yeah.
But it was a conversation I think that was a little complicated with my mom because my mom is someone who, not that she'll believe everything, because that sounds like I'm being mean to her. And but like, here's an example of something. She has a pool. We were hanging out by the pool, and she was saying like, "Oh, my sister Nan, your aunt Nan visited yesterday. She's not alive anymore. And this lantern that's on the table, it's an electric lantern. It lit up, and that's how I know she was here when we were talking about her." And I said, "Okay, are you sure that the timer didn't just cycle on the lantern?" She's like, "That lantern doesn't have a timer." I said, "Mom, that was the centerpiece at our wedding. I bought it. It has a timer." And I lifted it up and pointed to where it was switched to the timer function. And she was like, "Oh." And I was like, I'm not, I'm not saying that, I was like, "Mom, I'm not saying that like Aunt Nan couldn't show up and couldn't maybe turn. I just want us to not assume a
Right.
supernatural explanation for everything,
Absolutely.
because it could just be the timer, And I think that because I've always had a real, yeah, I love my mom. She's like a brilliant woman, but she sometimes makes these like leaps of faith, really, I think. And I've always had kind of a skeptical perspective, which I know is interesting because I wrote a book about making
Honestly,
good with the film.
one of the things I like the most,
Yeah.
because I come from, I work in medicine, so I totally understand that. I like that. I like having that skeptical mind, and I like having that analytical piece to the things that we're doing, and we're not just taking things like someone said this, so we're going to believe that. Like, you want to get to understand
Yeah.
why this is this and why people did this. And I do that a lot with my own research for a lot of the episodes that I do. I don't want to just be like, well, this book says this. Like, why does it say that? Why does this get attributed to that? Like, I can't, I need to know the reason behind it, because if it's just this is this, then it's hard for me to even remember that. Like, I have to understand the full picture in order for it to
Absolutely.
stick. And so yeah, and I agree. Like, for me in my own faith, in my own practice, like, I'm married, I have kids, and, everybody's allowed to believe and do what they want in our house.
Mhm.
Everybody knows that I'm what I am, and this is what I believe. But my husband, he still goes to Catholic church, and that's perfect for him, and it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
I got you.
So I love that. Now, getting into your work,
Yeah.
when you talk about, this was a term that I read in your messages to me, like when you talk about like the other crowd, and like, what do you mean by that? Or like the other people, what do you mean by that? Because you kind of push back a little bit from what it sounds like on most people when they think about like the good people, the other people. A lot of people think about like the Tinkerbell fairy aspect of it, right?
Mhm.
Like they think about that, like that kind of fairy, but this is like a totally different type of situation, right?
Sure. So I have strong thoughts that I'll moderate a little bit because I don't want to alienate anyone or offend anyone.
That's okay.
But
We don't mind doing that here. We're open. I'm what?
then I'll be blunt. So that image of the small winged,
Yes.
pixies,
Yes.
that is very new. If you consider that it's been at least 5,000 years we've been interacting with these beings, that image is really new.
Yes.
And it came about, largely because of Victorian art and some Victorian
Correct.
literature. It was also influenced by theosophy,
Correct.
more Blavatsky again. And like, so that I don't, if someone says they encountered a being and they look like that, I do kind of, there's a part of me that in the back of my mind is like immediately skeptical. And I
Mhm.
know that's crappy of me, but I also consider these are beings of glamour, and they can and do appear lots of different ways. I don't like the idea of saying, oh, it appears however makes sense to the viewer. Like, I don't think there's good evidence for that in the folklore, but I do think that they could choose how they appear. And so it's possible that some people might see a little, half naked lady with bug wings, and maybe that was one of the good people. Maybe. I like maybe. But historically, they've been a lot weirder than that. First of all, the majority of the time, they just look like humans, human-sized humans that are stunning, just impossibly attractive. That's like
Mhm.
the most common description in Western European folklore anyway. But there are weirder ones too. I mean, there are ones that have like some animalistic features. There are ones that appear to be part plant. There are
Mhm.
ones that, I mean, if you go beyond Western Europe into other cultures, very strange. I mean, have you ever read Francis Young's Fairies: A History?
I don't think so, but
I recommend it. It's great.
I think I actually have it. I just have
Yeah. Okay. So, well, in that,
I have so many books, so little time.
yeah, I know. I agree. Same problem. That's why I'm like these past few weekends I've been trying to catch up on stuff. But anyway, well, he just talks about in like the Sami tradition, there are personifications of periods of time that seem to fit our description of fairies. And so, but that's such a weird concept to most cultures.
Mhm.
So anyway, all that to say, I think, oh, and oh gosh, what's his name? The author's name is totally escaping me right now. He wrote the Underworld tradition. Oh my goodness. Please forgive me
No worries.
because I'm going to kick myself if I
No.
can't remember this.
Fine.
Hopefully your editors
No.
can skip to the part where I remember his name. Well, no, I can't. Underworld. Oh, it's Underworld Initiation. That's why. That's why I can't. Yes. So I'm sorry. R.J. Stewart, Robert Stewart. So apologies for his
No
name
worries.
escaping me for the moment, but he wrote actually a few different books on, Faery Craft, but some of the descriptions he gives of his encounters with good folk, which are, I mean, he didn't come up with them. They seem to match other
Uh-huh.
descriptions that you see in the folklore. They're weird, sometimes very strange beings. And there's actually, this is a tangent, but it's just
Yeah.
one I like to think about. In the tabletop role-playing game space, there's a guy named Brennan Lee Mulligan. He does shows and runs Dungeons and Dragons games and that kind of thing. But he tells this story. This is not a role-playing story, a real story from his life when he was a teenager and he worked at like an acting camp, I think it was. There's a clip of it on the internet you can find.
Uh-huh.
And he was walking around the camp the day before it opened. He was like a counselor there. And this girl, teenage looking girl with fake like fairy wings, like costume fairy wings, stepped out of the woods and handed him a coin and like closed his hand around it and then walked back into the woods. And he was like, man, who's that? She was weird. I got to find her later and like, ask her what that was about. He never saw her again. And it was like a camp. It was wooded
Yeah.
property in the middle of nowhere. And he kept it as a good luck charm for years. And there's more like lore that he has
Uh-huh.
associated with holding on to this coin. And when I heard that story, I had this thought of like, could you imagine one of the good people appearing to a human in the 2000s and going, this stupid human is not going to even know what I am if I don't wear
Mhm.
these stupid wings. So, all right. So they wear these stupid wings just so you know what I am. And like, I thought like, that's a really funny idea. Could it have been one of the good people? Sure. Right.
Maybe.
Why not?
Mhm.
Anyway, I don't think that they usually look like
You know,
tiny ladies with wings.
I personally have felt like there have been times when I saw one of these beings and as a younger person, like I just had this feeling like that's what I was seeing, but it was so different than what was typically portrayed on
Mhm.
TV or in books, but it was this sense and I don't know that I even recognized that at the time. It's like now looking back on things that happened, like remembrances from my childhood and like
Sure.
my late teenage years. And
Mhm.
it's so interesting because the things that I saw, they didn't look like, the fluttering little fairy wings, but they were very
Right.
weird. But they almost like they weren't of this world, but they were in the world.
Yeah. I think that's when you look at the folklore again across different cultures, that's one of the qualities that's common across all of these different accounts is they seem to be actual encounters with what seem like physical flesh and blood people,
Yes.
but there's something uncanny about them. They might be people more or less, but there's, in what we think of as a human, they might seem generally that way, but there's something about them that is so not human. And sometimes you can't even really identify
Yeah.
what it is. Something that I've tried to explain to people before is you can't imagine someone being so pretty that it freaks you out until you see someone that's so
Yeah.
pretty that it freaks you out. You know, you're like, this is normal.
Yeah.
No human is that symmetrical. Like
Right.
that kind of thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
so some of those ideas, but
Do you feel that you've had any personal like encounters where you feel that you've seen one of these beings? I mean, I don't know how else to describe it.
I think I can say yes, but that I can't give a lot of details,
Yeah.
because I'm not supposed to,
Yeah.
which is a common thing for folks that work with the good people of the other crowd. Is most of the time there's elements of the interaction that are like, hey, don't talk about this. Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah, I understand that. So you describe them as like chthonic or like primal rather than just like, that's kind of the terminology that I was reading when you,
mhm.
had messaged me. And to me, like that terminology is very interesting because, I think like as we've been chatting, like most people just think of them as like, oh, these little flittery things, these little helpers, like, but it's so much like deeper than that.
Yeah, deeper is a really good term because of the chthonic nature of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
So yeah, which I don't want to assume anything about anyone. So chthonic, in case people aren't
Yes.
familiar with that term, meaning like of or relating to the underworld,
Yes.
and especially in Western European traditions, and especially in Irish tradition, um, this other world where they dwell is accessed via, you know subterranean pathways. Sometimes it's under the sea, sometimes it's in the fairy mounds.
Mhm.
But there's a real underworld quality to that. And I was mentioning before, his name just got away from me again. Stewart,
Yeah.
RJ Stewart. He certainly talks about the underworld quality of working with them. So there are these beings. Oh, and if you read, okay, it's not out yet. If you read my book, you'll learn about how caves and these burial mounds are intimately connected with our origin, the first human interactions with the other crowd. And that's not a mistake. That we were going into these entrances to the underworld realm and encountering them there. I mean, they could come to us and encounter us anywhere. Like that happens certainly. But if we're seeking them out, which is a dangerous idea, but certainly we've been doing it for thousands of years. We tended to go historically to these underworld entrances and enact a pretty basic ritual there to ask them to come forth. So yeah, so they're primal in the sense that they're certainly closer to nature than we are.
Yeah.
Some of them appear to be blended with aspects, like I said, like ones with animal characteristics or to be
Uh-huh.
seeming part plant and
Uh-huh.
stuff. Like that's more nature. I mean, we're a part of nature too. Humans are.
Yes.
We're animals, but I
Of
mean, they
course.
are more attuned to the natural world than we are. Which isn't to say that all of the good folk are nature spirits. Some do seem to be, but I wouldn't apply that term across the board. But yeah, they're primal in that sense. I think they're primal also in the sense that they're connected to instinct, both in their own and our own instincts. Some
Mhm.
some basic human drives are played upon by the other crowd.
Mhm.
Most notably in folklore and in people's reported experiences, the two most common drives are um, like, hopefully we can talk about this, like sexual arousal. That's a
Mhm.
thing that they certainly play upon, and also fear, like fear
Yes.
for your life. Not to make any, I'm not trying to draw parallels to any other traditions, but it's common for people that encounter these beings in folklore and in modern reports, for them to be like, don't freak out. I'm not going to kill you, which is very similar to like, be not afraid. But like, there is that vibe of either so different. They're similar, but they're
Yeah.
so different from us that it is sometimes very scary.
Yeah. And
So that's what I mean.
yeah. And I liked what you said earlier, just about like the glamour piece, because I think it's very interesting too. And, I had never, I mean, that kind of just like put a little light bulb into my head, because I had never really thought about it much, like that, which is interesting because I'm someone that works with glamour magic, but I never really, I don't know how, I never really put the two together, but I guess I really haven't until now. But yeah, so when you talk about, because I think sometimes we learn that working with these beings is maybe like ill-advised, or you have to be very careful. Where do we get that feeling from, or like why do we hear that?
Because it's true.
Yes.
So first of all, that, but I will say the historical components, and then I will say a thing that is, it's coming from me. It's my assessment of the situation.
Yes.
So take that with a grain of salt. So the historical thing is, in most cultures that have folklore about, the other crowd, that's the common byword, is like, hey, any prescription for interaction with them is propitiation. The idea of like, leave out a glass of milk for the good folk, which comes from actually the most ancient rituals that we have with them. But that idea of doing that, it's like, so your cows don't lose their milk, so your crops don't dry up. It's like, you're doing this really just to make the good neighbors happy and keep everything copacetic. That's kind of the limit for most people who have a tradition of living alongside the good people. That's really all they're doing, is they're just keeping them happy. Please ignore me.
Hopefully.
Because those who mess around uncautiously or disrespectfully with the good people can incur their wrath. And even in modern times, or I should say, like, contemporary times, people who work with the good folk talk about, if they have a familiar, a fairy familiar, and they have disobeyed specific instructions, they've gotten in trouble for it. And actually, a great set of examples are, if it's okay to mention another podcast, the Feed the Fairies podcast. They don't, I don't think they're doing episodes anymore, but
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
It's Maureen Daimler and Kat Heath, I think, are the two, and they have guests and stuff, but they have an episode on familiars, and they talked about in one of them, some of their
fairies. Oh, I gotta write
Feed
that.
the Fairies. I think they only have like 6 episodes, and they stopped like a year ago. I don't know what happened.
Well, so I can binge that. Okay.
You could binge it, and yeah. But the familiars episode, they talk about their own personal experiences of like what has happened. Now, I've never, can I say it? I think I can say it. I've never violated any like stuff I was or wasn't supposed to do. So I haven't had to find out firsthand. I don't ever do that, because like, I don't, some of the stories are horrible. They're really bad. And so that's where we get it from, is like, if you do piss off these people, they will mess up your life. So it's probably smarter just not to. If you don't really have to, if you're not compelled to, or desperate enough, I guess, just don't. You might want to propitiate them with your milk and butter and some grain. Otherwise, you leave them alone. And my personal take on why that is, this again, that now I'm stepping away from like the common folklore, just giving my own assessment. If you look at the Irish folklore, I think this is metaphorical, but we humans, the sons of Mil, the Milesians, we beat the Tuatha Dé Danann, and they went into the Sidhe. And it seems that from after that point, after the Battle of Tailtu, they are considered part of the Sidhe. Maybe not all good folk were the Irish gods, but the Irish gods are now part of the broader collective of fairies. And even if you look at there are other cultures where we kind of forced them underground or we forced them into the other world. The Holde folk,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
alongside humans, but so it's common in a lot of cultures where we force them out in a way. We're invading their territory. So if that's true, I can't imagine many of them like us that much,
Right.
which is, whatever it is that we did, forcing them out, I think just the idea of encroaching on natural spaces with like urban expansion and industrialization and the way we're harming this planet that many of them have a deep relationship with. Yeah, I don't think they like us. So I don't think they need a whole lot of reason to want to say, screw you, human. I think if people do feel compelled to go and develop a relationship with them, they just want to be really cautious, follow all the rules, and I think you'll be okay. But if someone was just like, oh, I'm kind of interested, maybe I should try that, I'd be like, don't. Maybe don't. So, unless you really have to.
I mean, just like based on what you're saying, it seems to me like if I was just hearing this conversation, I would be thinking to myself, well, why would I even want to? Because that sounds terrifying. And I'm afraid that
Yeah.
if I'd make a mistake, then my whole life could go to shit. Like, why would someone even want to attempt to work with these beings?
So Siegfried and Roy is my
Okay.
analogy.
Oh, all right. I'm here for it. Uh-huh.
So Siegfried and Roy, I'm sure everyone, no, maybe young people, I don't know. Siegfried
Young
and Roy, they
people
were
might not be
performers.
familiar with them, but they were very famous performers in Las Vegas. Yes.
Yeah, and they had wild cats that were part of their performances, and they became extraordinarily wealthy and famous, and they had fabulous lives until one of them was killed by one of their cats. And so that's kind of the analogy I would give is like the rewards that you could have for working with these beings could be great. They could be quite remarkable. Your life could really, I can say, I'm not going to give examples because that would get me in trouble. But my life has improved in some significant areas because of my work with the good people. And I hope that it will continue to. But the risk is, if they're not tame, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like some fantasy novel where I've bound them into contract. Like, no, if anything, I'm the one bound into contract. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why. So the rewards could be great. It could really make your life more magical and certainly more interesting. But
it also sounds like there's a certain sense of, your work with that. There's a certain sense of, I don't know, secrecy or privacy about it. It sounds like is very important.
Yeah, usually. So, I mean, both in the folklore and every legitimate practitioner that I'm aware of that has worked with the good people today, they, usually you can talk about it. Like, I'm here talking about it. I wrote a book about it. So we can talk about it, but there's things we can't talk about, So.
I mean, like, when you started working with it, I mean, like, did you have someone that showed you how? Did you just learn from your reading and just things that you tried? Because to me, it seems like something that you wouldn't really just want to jump into without having a solid foundation of what you were doing and why you were doing it and what you were hoping to receive from it, or, to avoid those things. I mean, because it feels like we can do powerful spells, we can do powerful magic with the candle, but it's a thing where it's like you have to have a lot of reverence for it before you even go there. And so it seems like it's not just something for anybody that's interested in the magical community. And honestly, it is pretty niche. I don't really know, aside from Morgan and now you, I don't really know anyone else that practices this.
Yeah, I mean, well, so this is what I would say. There are, I mean, I think I listed like 3 or 4 authors before that are, popular, that have books that are selling thousands or have sold thousands of copies, whatever. So there are people at least consuming the literature about it. Whether they're actually engaging in the practices, I couldn't tell you. I don't know, but certainly there are people doing that. but it is, I think it is niche. It's a subsection of a subsection. You know, what
Mhm.
percentage of the population is a practicing witch or pagan in 2026? I don't know. And then what section of that is working with the good folk? I don't know. So it's going to be a little niche. But to answer your question of how did I learn the research, that's why I did so much research, is because I thought, yeah, I don't. The one thing I did know for sure before getting into it was you don't want to screw up because
Yeah.
the consequences could be great. So I did a lot of research, and had been, I have a history in like ceremonial magic
Oh,
prior
you
to
do?
this.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I was a member of some other, organizations that were more like the Western esoteric
Uh-huh.
tradition for a long time. So I was familiar with the idea of like you you do you do ritual actions to interact with non-human, entities, and there can be consequences for that. Like some of those basic premises I was already familiar with. So I felt like I had a vocabulary to work with. I just needed to know the right ways of interacting with these people. And so that was what I was really researching. So when I went to go begin this work, I I was just cautious but hopeful, and
Mhm.
I accepted that certain risks could befall me, but I felt that I was pretty well read on the topic before I really set my first foot in that world. So
Okay. Now, I mean, you can answer this or you don't have to answer it, but like, do you consider yourself like a pagan? Do you consider yourself a witch? Do you have like a title for what you consider like your type of magic, or do you just
yeah,
avoid titles? I mean, because that's cool too.
I do kind of generally avoid titles if possible, just because I don't know if there's a good term for like what I do, but pagan would fit me, witch would fit me. I think sometimes I don't use the word witch only because some, again, there are different currents in that community, but some folks feel very strongly that that's a gendered term, and they'd be offended. I'm a man, I'm a cisgendered man, and I'm saying I'm a witch, and some women might be offended by that. Now, some women would be, no, that's an inclusive
Yeah.
term. It's
Gender,
a
in my opinion, I think it's a
yeah,
gender neutral term.
same. I agree. I just don't. If I can avoid accidentally upsetting someone for like
Sure.
no reason, I'm not
Yeah.
going to pick that fight. There's no reason to pick that fight. But
Correct.
I have and do call myself a witch just because I practice a version or elements of traditional witchcraft. I guess it
Uh-huh.
really blends Irish and English elements, but so I do practice traditional witchcraft, but I would most often probably just say I'm a pagan. When
Yeah.
talking about the good folk, I'll say Fae
Yeah.
crafter or Fae practitioner,
Okay.
but
Because there's a lot of different terms. I mean, people consider like, even in this conversation, we've called them by lots of different terms. So I guess
Mhm.
essentially just like what you feel the most called to call them in your own practice.
The good people, you mean? What to call them?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So
good people, fairies, like I mean, and that's just in our own English language. Like,
I know. Yeah, I think so. So in terms of that, I'll use. Wait, did I cut you off? I couldn't tell.
huh, no.
No. Okay. So in terms of I I have used the F word a lot today,
Yeah.
but I generally don't in text or like writing. I don't really have a big problem with it because it seems to be spoken aloud. According to some traditions, the good people don't like being called fairies.
Okay.
Then in other traditions, it's fine. So I don't know. Maybe some don't. I've never. I just again erring on the side of caution when I'm going to do some sort of work with them in that context. I'm not going to use the word just because like I don't want to. You know what I mean? I don't want to
Mhm.
accidentally use a slur for another
So
world
you
being.
mostly call them the good people.
Good people and good neighbors are
Yeah.
most often what I'm going to say, but not everyone will know like what you mean when you say that. So in writing and on the internet and stuff, I do say fae and fairies.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean,
That's a trap too, though. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I would say Morgan Daimler is someone that I follow a lot, and she's a prolific, scholar and author on all of
Right.
these
Yeah.
things, and they, I hear the good folk a lot during, the way that they talk about it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Morgan uses, again, just from my reading and hearing of their speech, they use different terms. Good
yeah.
people, yeah, good neighbors. Sometimes dinamaha, which means
Mhm.
like good people, but I think I've heard them definitely use, fae and fairy
Yes.
and versions of that. Because I think when the trouble is when we're talking to humans, we have to use language that those humans will
Yes.
understand.
Hmm.
So if someone has no idea, no point of reference, and I'm like, yeah, I'm working with the good people, they're like, oh, which people are good? What do you mean? So, I don't know. But if you say, yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
working with the fairies, then they go, oh, okay, I know what that means. So at least to some extent, they might think small winged ladies, but they at least have some sense of what fairy means. So we just got to use the language that makes sense for the right context, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And when you work with them, I guess I had seen in one of your messages to me that do you follow like the season? Do you work with them like seasonally, or
I do.
was that part of it?
So yes, because of the Neolithic stuff,
Uh-huh.
I kind of try to draw from when we first started working with these people, what days mattered. So it seems like the summer solstice and the winter solstice, there's multiple alignments with that from megalithic structures that are associated with people. So those days for sure. And then it also seems that the cross quarter days,
Yes.
which were the fire festivals, at
Uh-huh.
least in Iron Age Ireland, but probably further back than that, there's evidence that they were. So, and that's, like Samhain, Bealtaine, Lunasa, and oh my gosh, Imbolc.
Oh,
Yeah. Wow. So, so those four are important. I think it seems like they became more important into the Iron Age than the solstices were. Weirdly, there's no mention of the equinoxes, like
oh, uh-huh.
anywhere along the line. So I really don't. I mean, they're cool days, but like I don't seem to.
Yeah. Now, when you work with the good people, I noticed also that you had said that you like to use just things from nature
Mhm.
rather than, because of course, in this community, there's so many beautiful, aesthetic, lovely things that people want to purchase. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I think, like working with things from nature is also wonderful as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So I because I'm interested in the Neolithic origins and perhaps further back, I am interested in, what did we use then? What
Hmm.
would we have used at the time? And are those options still good? You know? Now, you could make the argument that what's wrong with being modern, where, for example, if you have a food processor to blend up your herbs, is that better than a mortar and pestle? Then go ahead and use that. What's wrong with it? Like, sure. I'm not like
Right.
anti-technology. We're talking through technology right now. I'm not
Right.
anti-technology. But I do think if we're talking about beings that are chthonic in nature and intimately tied with the natural world, it might make more sense to use tools made from natural materials. And if you can make them yourself, cool. Then I think that you should. So like my knife for ritual purposes, I flint knapped. Well, I think it's technically chert, not flint, but flint. But I flint knapped that. I had to learn how to do
Oh, well.
like and make my wow. It is cool, right? But
Oh,
like
yeah.
I still have scars from the learning experience.
There was
Remember
a curve on that, huh?
there is a learning curve. It's a sharp learning curve. And
Yes.
when I first was doing it, I took a picture of my very bloody open hand and I sent it to my one friend, Winter. And he was like, now you know why we use that as our primary weapons for thousands of years. I was like, yes, I do. Because I wasn't even trying to hurt myself.
Uh-huh.
I was trying not to. And this is what happened. And I think yeah. Anyway, so but yeah. So I made all those things. I didn't make my I have a shillelagh, which I use as a staff or wand, and that I didn't make, but it's made of natural materials.
Uh-huh.
Even the like coating on it is a natural wax. That came from Ireland from someone who makes them by hand. But everything else, yeah. I don't know how familiar you are with traditional witchcraft. Do you know what a stang is? It's the forked staff that's
Oh,
used for
yeah,
like the
yeah.
treading
Mhm.
mill. So that is, I haven't really altered it at all from the state that it came to me in. Although that is actually an interesting story. I don't know if this matters. I could tell it to you, and if you like
Sure.
it, you can keep it.
What?
My mother had a willow in her yard, and the one day I just happened to stop by. I was in town. I don't live in the same town as my mom. I was in town because of a medical thing, because I had to go to a doctor there. And I'm fine, but I wanted to make sure I was fine. Anyway, so I was there. I just stopped by to be like, "Hey, mom, what's up?" She goes, "Oh, say goodbye to the willow."
Oh,
I said, "Why? Why are we saying goodbye to the willow?" And she said, "I have to cut it down." And there are reasons why she had to cut it down. I really tried to come up with alternative solutions. I was like, I really tried to talk her down from it, but she was like, "No, listen, I've investigated these options. The only
yeah.
option is cut it down." And then she had to leave, and I was waiting around for a while because I was going to go do something else, see friends from my hometown. So I said, "Do you mind if I just hang at your house for a while?" And she said, "Sure." And I went out to the willow, and I'm not someone who's like all the time talking to plants and stuff like that, but I am an animist as part of my worldview and my practice. And I just felt like just crappy about it. So I just was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I don't know that you know this, but I feel like you should know you're going to get cut down." And I tried. I really tried. I don't think there's anything I can do, but like in the next week, you're going to get cut down. Sorry. So the next day, my mom asked me to come over for a cookout and go to the pool, whatever. I was like, all right. So I go, and I had been looking for a stang at this point in time. I didn't have a stang, but I needed one. And I went, and she said, "Hey, do you want this?" And she handed me a perfectly forked staff, just over. And I was like, and it was clearly a branch from the willow tree. And I was like, "What? Why are
Well,
you?"
I was looking for that.
I was like, "Why are you offering this to me?" She's like, "I don't know. I just thought you would want it." And I'm like, "Well, you just like busted a branch off the tree." And she's like, "No, it just fell off. It was just there on the ground this
No.
morning." And I was like, "Yes, thank you."
I'm sorry.
And so I was just like, I'm not messing with it. It is, you know,
That
it's
is
given to me the
so
way that it is. It's perfect the way it is.
wow, that's so
So
beautiful. Wow. That's so
yeah,
interesting. The
I
tree.
have a lot of interesting stories like that, but most of them I can't really tell. That one I can tell, so I did.
Yeah, the
But
tree knew. I love a willow tree. How sad.
yeah.
So sad it had to
Anyways,
go. But you have a little piece of it with you. So
yes, I do.
that's nice. I love that. Now, one thing that kind of the last thing I really want to ask you about, which was really something that in the notes that you had sent me that was really interesting, was this concept about like pact making with,
Mhm.
I'm probably not going to say it right. Let me see. Pact making with the not, Nade. How do I say it?
Which
Nade. Nade Maha.
the Nadina Maha? Yeah. So the good people.
Nadina Maha.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
gosh, these words just destroy me.
yeah. Maha. Yeah, that's something.
Like, what are you
It's me the good
talking
people. Good people. The good people.
Yes, it's just another word.
Yes.
It's just another
Yeah.
Irish, right? Irish word.
Yes. Irish
Irish.
for the good people.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Or the good.
yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
But
So
like to speak back to what we had talked about before, as far as like being prepared or unprepared for your workings with them, or is this like a different concept?
so yeah, like making a pact, you can make a pact with lots of different being. You can make a pact with a human, right? But you
Right.
can make a pact with these non-human entities, and there's varying degrees of risk associated with that. Making a pact with people's high risk, high reward situation, like the Siegfried and Roy analogy.
Sure.
And if you think about like the idea of having a familiar,
Mhm.
and certainly there's a long tradition of witches having fairy familiars in Western Europe. It's sort of like saying, "Hey, I'm agree if you have been offered that, you're saying I agree to do that. I agree to work with you, have a close working relationship with you specifically, and I'm going to do these things for you. And in exchange, you will, teach me or guide me or whatever things you're getting in return." And there's a long folkloric history of making deals with fairies.
Mhm.
So I think people kind of rightfully are very afraid of that because they don't want like it's a genie, like you're going to get
Mhm.
tricked if you don't have the right
Yes.
wording or whatever. And certainly there are tricky good. In fact, that's why I don't know, we didn't talk about this, but that's part of why we use euphemisms like the good people and the good neighbors. It's sort of to appeal to their better nature. The idea that if you upset them, you get in trouble. So we're just going
Mhm.
to talk about them in only the best of terms. They're the good
Yes.
people, the good neighbors. But yeah, I mean, if you go into it respectfully and saying, I'm going to do these things for you, if you do those things for me, and that's the nature of our relationship, it's very transactional in that way. But yeah, you know, you I think maybe I should write a book about that specifically. But you can make a deal with them, and do that. The big risk is, of course, you then do not want to violate what you said you were going to do. You don't want to violate that. And if it's the case of having a familiar, it's kind of an open, I may ask you to do certain things, and you're going to have to do those things. That's pretty open. You know what I mean? What are they going to ask me to do? Sometimes some people, thankfully not myself to this point, but there are some people who've been asked to do some concerning things to them concerning, and then you have the issue of, if I don't, what's going to happen to me?
Mhm.
You know. So what I would recommend, what a lot of people would recommend, is if you are doing that, if you're making a pact with the good people, you have to set certain limits of like, this is off limits. This I won't do. The idea of like, my kids can't be involved. The idea of like, I'm not going to physically harm anyone for you. I won't do that. Or I'm not going to do something. Some people might die. I'm not going to do something that would get me arrested. I don't know. But and being willing to say, I'm not going to do those things, understanding that they might go, all right, well, no deal then.
Sure.
So, but hopefully they would go, okay. You know, One of the things I think that's interesting, because we talked about how niche it is. There's not a ton of humans out here trying to make deals anymore.
No.
So I think that, not that that puts you in a position of
Mhm.
leverage. I'm not
Right.
suggesting that, but I think that, you know, you you're not going to, it's not like everyone's doing it, I guess is all I'm going to say. It's not like everyone's doing it. So yeah.
Do you feel like the pact aspect is kind of essential for this work, or is that something that you could choose or choose not to do?
I think, like it is part of the work, because if you don't make some sort of contractual relationship
Right.
with the good people, to what extent are they involved in your work?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't really know. I mean, you could leave out offerings for them, just as you would for other spirits that might be in your environment, and that's fine. Lots of people do that. That's normative. There are even people who aren't witches or pagans that do that.
Yes.
They're just, like I said, propitiation. I'm going to leave out milk for the good people so that
Mhm.
my cattle keep producing. Lots of people do that, and I think that's fine. That doesn't necessarily constitute a magical practice involving the good people. What does is going, I'm working with you guys specifically, and cultivating that relationship. So
Is
sorry.
someone standing behind you? Or is it just
No, if there aren't any humans standing behind me.
there's like a shadow on your wall that was like looked like it was moving differently than
I
you. It's
know.
like,
That's what you probably saw me be like, because I thought, oh, is that my cat? It isn't.
oh, okay.
So
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't, I'm
Someone's
not, Yeah, I'm against a wall, essentially. The wall is like a few feet behind me. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
I don't know. It just, to me, like from my perspective, it just seemed like something all of a sudden it was just like walked and was like right there. And so then I
I
thought
know.
maybe, so then I thought, oh, well, maybe one of your kids or something was like standing right there and it was causing a shadow, but no, huh? Okay.
Let me clarify. The only other earthly beings in this house are two cats, neither of whom are in this room.
Interesting.
So,
Be what it may. Okay.
mm,
That is so weird.
I am, I'm not too interested in investigating it deeply
No,
at the moment,
no.
only because I don't want to upset anyone. But hey,
Yeah. Okay. Well, so just to kind of like wrap things up, I'm just very interested, like if you could kind of give just to tease your book, is this more of a history forward book or is this like, or are there like workings in it or like what's the general vibe of your new book?
cool. There's three sections to it essentially. And the first section is all history. The first section is just going, here's the archaeology and the mythology and some folklore and how they tie together. So the first section is all of that. And kind of going like the first section is none of me, essentially. It's just gathering the information. Then the second section is going, okay, so what does that mean? If we're going to assume that these beings are real based on all of this historical and academic information, what does that mean? And kind of putting together a worldview or a system of belief, I guess you could say. And then the third part is saying, how would you live that out? How would you have a reconstructed practice today? And I do go into workings isn't the right word. I talk about votive deposition, which is taking token or talismanic objects and depositing them in the ground or in bodies of water, and why you would do that and how you would do that, because that's part of Neolithic ritual. And then I also talk about the offerings made to the good people, how and where you would do that. Some about when you would do that, talking about those six holy days, which is sort of like the wheel of the year minus equinoxes, essentially. But I kind of said in there like, hey, if you super love equinoxes, go ahead and celebrate them. No one cares,
Yeah.
but I think it's fine. But yeah, so I kind of talk about important times, important places, how you would make these offerings. I I also kind of said if you have an existing practice, how you could tie these things into your existing practice.
Well,
So that's
I
in there
love that.
too.
Well, it sounds really fascinating. I can't wait. The next year better hurry up.
I,
I
it's
know
so far
writing
out.
books is very long. I know it can be a very long process from what I don't know. Some people
No, I wrote it. It's written. It's
yeah,
written already.
it's
It's
a
just that the
patient
publication
process.
schedule.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, initially when they were like, yeah, we're gonna publish you, cool. It'll be like probably about a year. And I was like, oh, all right. And then they were like, psych, never mind, November 27. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, all right. Well, at least I'm getting published. So,
Huh.
are you still trying to figure out what the shadow situation is?
It's so bizarre. Sorry, I'm like that is so weird. And it keeps like moving. Anyway, sorry, I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out.
Well, I think we're fine. I haven't said
We're
anything
good.
I'm not supposed to,
No,
so I'm
we're
not dark.
good. It's just interesting. Well, Brandon, this has been a fascinating conversation. Honestly, this is just like I personally am just feeling so like it's bringing me so much joy just to be able to geek out with someone about these topics. Cause I mean, I literally have no one in my life that would have any desire to talk about any of these things. So when you reached out, I was like, this is perfect. So
Well, cool.
yeah, this has been really, really fun. Where can people find you? Where are
Okay,
you
so
on the
like,
interweb?
yeah, inside the Hollow Hills, which is a reference to the she, the Hollow Hills of Irish folklore, but also to any megalithic burial mounds and caves, which again, if you read my book, it'll make sense. But or if you just listen to what we talked about today. But yeah, so inside the Hollow Hills, I'm there on Threads, and that's also my YouTube name. I only have one video up right now. I think I'm filming one later today.
Cool.
But it might be controversial. I don't know. But over time, I'll be uploading more videos to YouTube.
Give me some controversy, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I don't want to pick fights, but there are some things that just a trend I've been seeing on social media where I can't believe people aren't getting in more trouble for it with the good folk. And I almost just want to do the video to be like, please stop doing this. Maybe in trouble.
Yeah.
So I have some videos on there that I'll be putting up.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, this has been so fun. I'll link all the good stuff in the show notes, and then Brandon will let us know when his pre-orders for his book come out, so that we can promo that, because that's very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, I know it's a lot of, I've never written a book before, but I could imagine that it is a lot of work, and especially the type of book that you wrote, with a very research dense. So
yeah.
But it's also fun too, right? When you're able to put all these things that you're interested in together. So that's
inspiration, I believe, comes from the Otherworld. And so when I'm working on a book right now that, not that I don't have any inspiration for, but it's harder for me to make time to work on it. When I was working on the book about reconstructing Stone Age religion, I was like driven.
Yes.
You know, the inspiration was pushing me. I had to write it, and it was effortless. So yeah, it's an interesting experience.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I'm quite certain that it had to be written. So
I love that. Yeah, I always was like, when I was younger, I was always like really interested in wanting to write a book on this topic, but not like in the way that you are. Just, I don't know, but maybe down the road, I don't know. Who knows where life takes us. But anyway, thank you for coming on. This was so fun. And sorry for the little family drama in the midst of all of it. But, you know, that's part of the course around my house. It's just pure chaos at all times. But we're just doing the best we can.
Well, hopefully the kids are okay.
Oh, they're fine. Their dad's home. He can take care of it. Fine. Nothing we haven't been through, probably even earlier today. So we're good.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending this time at the threshold with me. If you want to go deeper, follow me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash, where I share daily crystal magic and behind the scenes of this liminal life. You can also find resources, previous episodes, and ways to work with me at bigcrystalenergy.com. We're also on YouTube at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please rate it and review it, and share it with a friend that you think would connect with it. It would mean so much to me, and helping build this beautiful community of other magical friends and crystal workers. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.